Welcome, we are live. Let me send this link out to my friend. There. So we're live. Our topic today is Biden's autopen scandal. So we all knew on our side of the aisle that something wasn't right. We just knew. You could see, him reaching out to shake hands with a flag. You could tell by what you were seeing, something ain't right there, right? Well, it's far worse than what we thought. They had a hearing in the House behind closed doors, and then they had a separate hearing in the Senate. And the things they found is mind-blowing. Okay, so remember the name, Neera Tanden. She was one of the top aides. She testified in the closed-door hearing in the House that she signed papers as though she was president for like 22 months. 22 months. She signed all the papers like she was the president. Then it came out in the Senate hearing that there's no paper trail. That every time Joe Biden said he wanted this aide to use the autopen, he's supposed to document it. He did not do that. He said his name is Theodore Wold. He said his investigation shows that after Joe Biden was president for 1 year, that the first year Joe Biden signed everything on his own. There was no use of the autopen the first year. He said after that second year started, the autopen was used 100% of the time. 100%. And he said there's no paper trail. He said, and a lot of the times when things were signed, Biden wasn't even at Washington, D.C. He said, this needs to be investigated because a lot of this stuff may be illegal. He said, pardons may be invalid because the president did not give the direction to use his authority to issue a pardon. To me, that is mind-blowing because, well, good morning or good night, whatever. That's mind-blowing because that means that the 8,800 pardons signed the last 6 months he was president, that he did not give the authority to sign them. That means they're all invalid. That every one of them is invalid. And I'm sure that the Democrats will try to fight that. But at the end of the day, like Theodore Wold said, he said, legally there has to be a paper trail. That the Presidential Records Act says that everything the president signs or orders to be signed has to have proper documentation. And he said there was a hearing this last week in front of the U.S. House and then another one in front of the Senate, and it was about President Biden's aides using the autopen to sign for him when he did not give them authority to do that. And the expert said that that means that anything that was signed that the president didn't give his direct authority, he said it's invalid. So if he did not give the directive, this is an example, there's some big pardons. Anthony Fauci, General Mark Milley, if the president didn't specifically give authority for those pardons to be signed, that means the pardons are not valid. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about we had a president that was, how's a nice way to put this? Incapacitated? Yeah, that's not exactly right. He was mentally deficient enough to be considered unable to stand trial. That's what the Her report said, that he was unable to stand trial. Well, if he's mentally deficient enough to not be able to stand trial, then he's not mentally deficient, he's not mentally capable of being president. Because presidents have to make decisions sometimes in seconds. That is just, we sit here and we think about, being forgiving and stuff. That's not forgivable. Well, I can forgive Joe Biden because he didn't know what was going on. There were aides, Neera Tanden, remember that name? She was his top aide. She said that she signed papers as though she was president for 22 months. That's almost 2 years. That's almost 2 years. She signed all the president's papers as if she was the president. To me, that's craziness. And it also shows me that, okay, so when the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, sit down with President Biden and said, look, why did you ban oil and gas drilling in the Gulf? He said, no, I didn't do that. I would never do that. And he said, yes, you did, and showed him the paperwork. He said, no. He said, they're just supposed to do a study on the effects of oil and drilling in the Gulf. He said he tried to tell him, that's not what you signed, sir. So he did not know the stuff that was going on. It's like I said at the beginning here. We had a president that we knew something was off because he would be up on stage and he would be trying to shake hands with the flag. That's kind of crazy, right? To have your president walk over to the flag and try to shake hands with it? To me, it's just crazy. And then it came out at the Senate hearing that the aides have a moral obligation to go up the chain of command and, talk about the 25th Amendment, which means that the president has to be removed because he's unfit to do his job, that they have a moral obligation to go up the chain of the command. And that if they go up the chain of command and everyone says no, when they get to the top, to the vice president, if she says no, then you have an obligation to resign. Because They said, while you were hired by the president, you work for the people of America. Which I kind of understand that. You know, even though, you know, the aides are hired by the president, loyal to the president, most of them, they still have certain ethical and moral obligations, if that makes any sense. Because, you know, a lot of people fuss and moan about Trump. Well, we'll get back to that. This is another thing I found out. Neera Tanden said that Joe Biden was put off limits by his cabinet secretaries. That his cabinet secretaries were not allowed to go talk to him. That they had a certain person that they had to go and bring a question to, and then that person would take the question to the president and so forth. Hi, Diana. Welcome. It's just, you know, how can you have a president of either party that's not allowed to talk to their own cabinet secretaries? And when she said that he was not, that the cabinet secretaries nor the staff were allowed to go and talk to the president, that to me, it's crazy. You have a president, it's his job to hold weekly cabinet meetings, and then you find out also that there were no cabinet meetings, that they held a cabinet meeting every 4 to 5 months. Them are supposed to be held weekly. Every week he's supposed to get together with his cabinet so that he can direct them to run the country what he wants done. If he's not meeting with his cabinet, or they're not allowed to ask him questions at the meeting, then what were they doing? Were they all conspiring to run the country without the president? This is just crazy. It's going to get worse before it gets better, you know, because this was the first set of hearings. There are going to be more. The one I'm waiting for is they're bringing in his doctor, who said he was perfectly fine, there's nothing wrong. And then in February of this year, they announced that he has stage 4 prostate cancer. You don't get to stage 4 prostate cancer like within 6 months. That takes years and years. And his doctor said that he was not given a PSA because he didn't feel it was necessary. Well, you know, if you ask most men over 45 or 50, they get a PSA test done every year. That checks the health of your prostate. I get one done every year. It's a blood test. It's no biggie. All right, that's what I got for y'all today. We'll be back tomorrow. There's some breaking news about Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Yeah, wait till you hear about this. But we'll talk about that tomorrow. Glad to see you all, and talk to you tomorrow.